Welcome everybody to I Want to Know for this week. As you can imagine from the earrings, happy Halloween to everybody. I hope you had an amazing weekend. It was really awesome being able to see people's live feeds from all these investigations happening over the weekend. I know that Facebook Live hadn't actually been created this time last year, so it was really, really good to actually see everybody getting stuck into it and trying different stuff. I think for me it was interesting from another perspective because I was actually at the headquarters of National Ghost Hunting Day, or World's Biggest Ghost Hunt. So it was nice to actually see, individual feeds from different parts as well as just seeing them on a big screen as well. So it was really, really good and everyone was getting into it. So happy Halloween to our Northern Hemisphere buddies. Hope everything and was great and you had a really, really good time too, and great investigations. Apologies, I actually am getting over a bit of a head cold, so if I do cough occasionally, I'm not demonically possessed, although by the flu bug, but I'm just getting over a bit of a flu, so apologies for that as well. So it's good to see you. Hey Bill, hey David, good to see you. Alison, hi. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting topic for this one. And I want to know, can I bring a spirit home with me after investigation? Now, I'll start by saying that as investigators, we need to keep in mind that science hasn't actually confirmed spirits and ghosts existing. Okay, so that's one thing I think investigators need to keep in mind, myself keep in mind as well. It's not something that's been proven. Hey Matt, how are you going? It's not something that has been proven. Science hasn't actually been able to verify with any evidence whatsoever, so that's also something to keep in mind as well. I think, like I said before, we kind of get a bit lost in that a bit. So keep in mind that it's not something that has been scientifically proven. So a lot of what we'll be talking about in this session and most sessions of this particular series is based on our experiences and how we're interpreting it as well. I also believe in keeping an open mind as well. I think it's silly to completely count out the fact that once we pass, absolutely nothing happens and we just get buried into the ground. So that's my thoughts on that too. Hi Corinne, how are you? Hey Matt, glad that you could join. Rob, Karina, good to see you guys. So this is a really interesting topic and one that I'm actually going to start off by asking you guys. What do you think? Do you think that you can bring something home after an investigation? Do you think that something can follow you home after an investigation? Type yes if you can. If that's happened to you, if you know someone else that's happened to as well, I'd really be interested because I've had a couple of interesting comments about people who have had this experience from posting this particular topic. So I think it's really interesting that a lot of people have had experiences. So no, Mark, good, excellent. I'm glad that you're honest with that. Deb, hi, how are you, sweetheart? So Corinne, so yes, you've had that too. Oh, interesting, interesting. Who else has had? Who else has had actually experiences where they've had, where they felt that something's followed them home? And I think there was a lovely lady, Ariana, who posted a comment, and she had said that she has had something that's followed her home. Alison, 27 years ago. In 27 years, except since once only and only for one night. See, that's really interesting, isn't it? In my experience, I personally haven't had anything ever follow me home. Shane, hello Shane, how are you, mate? I personally haven't had anything follow me home. I have at some point maybe a bit felt uncomfortable in my home once or twice over the years, but I don't think it's something that's happened from an investigation. I think maybe I just wasn't feeling right at the time. I think it's possible enough to take appropriate precautions. Excellent, Jim. Thanks for that. And good to see you watching, mate. Jeff, no evidence, but I think it's likely possible. It could be, and I think it's really important to keep an open mind. The absence of evidence doesn't mean there's evidence of absence, which Carl Sagan has said, and I think that's a very important point to make. I think we need to be open-minded of this possible theory that ghosts and energies exist, but we must always keep in mind that science actually hasn't, at this point in time, verified its existence. In saying that, science used to say the world was flat, so we're just going to be balanced, but also keep it in mind. Oh, hey Don, how are you, mate? Good to see you. Karen as well. So yeah, my experience, I've never had anything follow me home, and I've investigated hundreds of cases in over the 8 years, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm about as psychic as a brick, But in saying that, I have actually heard some really interesting experiences from people I 100% trust. First cough for the talk. Yay, flu. I've actually had interesting experiences, and these people I trust 100%, and very level-headed people. And so I'd like to know these people who their ghosts are following them. Exactly. Well, there have been a lot of people that have come to me with cases that they've had, and have been very level-headed about it. But it's funny. It's been something for them that's only really happened once, except for one group of people. And I'll speak about it now because it's this lovely couple were actually at a graveyard during the day, and they were tidying up a particular graveyard up for a loved one, and they saw somebody kind of looked a bit lost, but they weren't really sure, and so they called out to the person and said, oh look, do you need help? And this lady came in, but they said the way that she moved was very unnatural. They couldn't see her feet, and she moved towards them. This is daylight, and she moved towards them, and as she moved towards them, she just didn't kind of see herself. Excuse me, I've got to get water. Oh, I love the flu this time of year. So she's come forward. They were asking questions, and she seemed really not there, out of it, kind of sort of a bit, sort of just, there was no connection there. And afterwards, these beautiful people had 12 months of claimed intense activity. They couldn't sleep properly. There were things happening in their rooms all the time. They couldn't even shower in the bathroom and stuff. There was all sorts of activity happening in the house, and they ended up having to get quite a bit of help coming in. Yeah, I know. It's like, gotta love a spirit like, don't you, Jim? So no, it's so, and these people I trust. And their experiences actually ended up opening the door for them to actually help other people, and they're very spiritually focused in how they conduct their investigations because of it, and they do protection and all this sort of stuff as well. Brad and Barry Kling have had something in their car after an investigation. Now, these guys are pretty level-headed. So when I heard that from them, I'm like, oh, please. And like, no, we heard something that was not a normal sound. And when I come back from an investigation, it takes me probably about a good half of a day to actually, I call it desensitize. You're almost hypervigilant every time there's a sound or a noise or something bangs or something's not familiar, and you're like, what was that? That was not familiar. What was that? Like, you can almost hear, like, you've got subsonic sound hearing. So I know what that's like to be still on edge after an investigation, and I've had that before. So I think it's really interesting that the Kling brothers themselves have actually sensed something, and it was in the car on the way back. So it wasn't actually at their place, but they actually heard a growl at the back of the car, and it happened twice on the way back to their home or place that they were staying. So that's really interesting. So there are people that I trust that have had experiences and speak about experiences. Myself, I haven't had that experience. Like I said, I'm not very psychically open, but I'm extremely wary of trusting your own gut instinct as well. So I think being open to the fact that this can happen is a possibility. Also keep in mind, if you're going into a location and you are fearing that something will come home with you, then it's going to make the situation worse. Hi Vicky, how are you? It could actually make the situation worse. Now, if you're talking about from a spiritual perspective and all that sort of thing, by going into a place and already fearing something will attack you or come home with you, it's actually going to not make... As an investigator, it's taking your mind off the job. And it sounds really horrible. There's a bit of that. But also at the same time, from an energy perspective, you're actually almost attracting fear a little bit. Excuse. Oh, Mel, I'm so glad. I'll read your comment soon, sweetheart. So you can almost attract it a bit. So it's almost you go into a place and go, I'm really scared. I'm going to walk home with something. I'm really scared. I'm going to walk home with something. You're almost going to, from a psychological perspective, almost interpret what's going to happen as something confirming that. So that's also something as well. It's almost the snake eating its tail a bit sort of thing. It's almost like you're sort of catching yourself a little bit. So keep that in mind if that is a fear that you do have. I personally myself, I don't protect myself when I go on investigation. I have not done it for, well, God, probably about a good 4 to 5 years now. And I do that for the reason that I want to experience. Have I felt fear? Yes. Have I felt threatened? Yes. But I will not go into an investigation with protection, because I think that already goes in with a preconceived idea that a place is haunted, and also goes with a preconceived idea that whatever, if you do believe in that plane of spirituality, I'm already blocking myself off from actually potentially, you know, sensing anything, seeing anything, capturing anything, experiencing something that's going to help me. So thank you, Peter. So completely, it's so I think if you go in protecting yourself to the point of no return, you'll get no return. It's almost like that. So just keep that in mind. But in saying that, it's very individual, and I think as investigators, that's one thing we need to respect, that we all have very individual ways of investigating. So for me, that's how I do it. If you're somebody who feels very empowered by being able to have protection from whatever faith that you have, whichever way that you want to, I wholeheartedly believe that you should, if it gives you peace of mind and helps you concentrate at the task at hand. So that's for me, because most of the time for me, I'm investigating private cases and I need to be on the ball. I can't be thinking about how I'm feeling. I've got to be thinking about how the clients are feeling, how the investigation's going, what's happening, how you almost go have an out-of-body experience yourself. You put yourself aside, you're there for someone else. That's why I don't mind the good old public investigation where you can just kind of relish the situation for what it is. But yeah, I don't protect, but at the same time, I think if you want to go ahead, do it. I think it's it's advisable, excuse the coughing, it's advisable if it's something that helps you feel confident. I also think it's important to know your surroundings as well. So as investigators, we're so used to investigating other people's locations. Excuse me, I'll just get some water. I don't always sing when I drink water. I think it's important to be able to know your surroundings. We're very, very, very in tune and very knowledgeable about other people's locations and what's happening there, activity, hotspots, what's it like during the day, what's it like during the night, the creaks, the bangs. But I think we've got to be equally as much so with our home as well. And I don't mean that from a fear perspective. I just think that from a safety perspective. There are a couple of times where I've heard creaks and bangs here. I'm like, oh, that's not great. And I think this place is probably built in the 70s, but it's been modified multiple times, kind of stuff. The roof really cracks. In this place, I've never had a roof that's cracked so much before. And up until about 8 years ago, I've never lived in a freestanding house. So I always lived in a place that was in a unit. So I was used to hearing noise that other people made. So when it came to actually a place that, you know, temperature drops and downlights that crack, the downlights like pop all the time. It sounds like someone's doing a mini shooting gun in my house, but it's actually just them condensing after they're being switched off. So keeping those things in mind as well. I did have an experience, I'm not sure if some may remember, where about 4 months ago I had I was in bed and sort of half awake, half sleep sort of state, and I heard snoring in the other room. Oh, the husband's late. The husband's late for work. This is terrible. My God, he's going to get his butt kicked. As I woke up, I realised it stopped, and I thought, oh, sleep wake state, no worries. You know, your brain's having a moment. Picked my phone up, started watching a video, and I heard it again, to the point where I believed it wholeheartedly that I got out of bed. I flung out of bed. Doesn't happen very often. And I raced to the spare door of the spare bedroom and I flung it open, and the husband wasn't there. Now I heard the breathing in between the snoring. So that was really interesting. That's not happened since. Don't know what that is. That's, to me, still unexplainable, but I'm not going to sit there and say it's paranormal, because it doesn't make sense. Like, you think, why, if it was a spirit, why would it be snoring at me? And then, of course, I think, well, okay, well, have I investigated somewhere, you know, in the last couple of weeks that would have, you know, matched up with this? It's like, no, then I start looking at history, and that becomes really wrong, because then you're starting to try and find answers to fit it, when that's not the case. It shouldn't be the case at all. You end up trying to find an investigation previously that's going to actually explain it, and that's to me, I just think that's when you're starting to try and look at investigating an experience in the wrong way. It should be something that you either know, or it's just unexplainable. That's a whole other topic altogether, where I believe knowing the history of a location can actually hinder an investigation as opposed to actually helping it. So anyway, but long story short, so I think when it comes to something possibly following you home, it's very individual. For me, I personally think it doesn't happen. I don't believe in it. I've never believed in it. Um, if that was the case, after every investigation, my house would be so full that there'd be crap flying everywhere. And that's the thing is to me, I ask the question, well, why is it that some locations, if you were to investigate and have something come with you, and yet some locations you do the same methods using similar questions and nothing comes home with you? So to me, I'm still like, well, look, samey, but I don't know. So for me personally, I don't believe in it, but I also think that investigating should be respected and very individualized when it comes to this kind of stuff. People have had experiences that they can't explain. People have been able to be more spiritually in tune, and they're able to help energies move on, however which way that's done. That's fine too. But it's always good just to be open-minded about it. And for me, I haven't had it, but I think we should respect other people who have had it. And so whatever works for you. If you feel uncomfortable, make yourself comfortable. Just the same you do with private cases. If there's a client that's feeling uncomfortable, we empower them. We say to them, this is your home, this is your place, this is where you are king of your castle. And it has always been that way. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean that you should be fearing it. And that's very easy to say when I don't have to sleep there at night, but that's the one thing that we empower. So take that information that you use with your cases and use that for yourself as well. So I personally don't think that you can have something follow you home, but I know of people who have, that I trust. So knowing your surroundings, being level-headed about it, and call your mates to investigate. I don't believe investigating your own home because you're too emotionally involved. I don't think you could look at something logically if something's happened in your home and actually see it for the phenomena that it is, instead of actually fearing that something might be happening in your home or not. So there's that as well. And I can't wait to read the comments after this video. There's so many awesome comments. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Until the next week's episode. Happy Halloween!